Welcome to Midlife Matters, where we celebrate women's wisdom and wit. I'm Georgianne Lucia, your host, and I'm delighted to introduce today's guest, Bonnie Symansky. Bonnie is an educator, a video producer, a conservationist, and has done many, many other things in her varied past. So welcome, Bonnie. We're delighted to have you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Great. Just to get started, you've earned 2 advanced degrees. You've worked in profit and nonprofit organizations. You served as a school librarian for 20 years. A lot of versatility there. And I do see threads of how you've built on things, of course. So we're going to share that with our viewers. And let's start with your current role with NorthBranfords Land Conservation Trust. You're very involved with that, in particular towards helping kids get out in nature.
I was working in Wallingford in one of the schools as a librarian, and I retired, and I said, well, what am I going to do with my time? Mm-hmm. So I went from nonprofit organization, and people are talking about grandchildren. I went to another one, they're talking recipes. But I went to the land trust, and they were speaking a foreign language. They were talking easements. And I said, I could learn something. So that's when I decided to join the land trust. And I attended meetings, and very soon I was asked to join the board. And I've had many roles on the board with outreach because of my strong communication background, but I have tried to focus my energy on getting children outside. I did that when I worked in Wallingford in the schools. We built a small nature trail, and I saw what a difference that made in a child's day.
Yes, I would imagine with so much time kids are spending on their devices that there's not as much of a pull to be outdoors as perhaps previous generations, so that the benefits of learning through nature, with nature, aren't necessarily afforded the way, maybe you and I experienced it. Tell us about some of the programs that you've sponsored. Like you just recently told me you kicked off a season with a bear hunt.
I did. There's a book by Rosen. It's called Going on a Bear Hunt. What a beautiful day. I'm not scared. And I took children on a new trail. They were with their parents. Mm-hmm. They were young. On a new trail to kick off the summer reading program, which had to do with adventure. Also, we'll be working with the 6th grade Girl Scouts. There's a trail behind Totoket Valley Elementary School, and it's perfect. And I'm interested in setting up an outdoor classroom. So I've been in touch with the superintendent and the director of curriculum and the teachers, and I'm in the process of doing that. It all takes time. Everything takes time.
Yeah, sure.
But now the Girl Scouts are calling, and they said the 6th graders want to work with you. Mm-hmm. And can you give us some ideas? They want a sustainable project, not just a one-day hike. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, that is exciting. As an educator, what ideas do you have, working theories, et cetera, about how nature helps promote maybe a different type of learning than, say, reading or certainly being on a device? The actual sensory being out, seeing, hearing, smelling.
The other day, I was walking in the woods, and all of a sudden, I hear a sound. I wasn't sure what the sound was, and I looked in front of me, and there were some wild turkeys right in front of me. And then I walked a little further, and I looked down, and there was a frog right in front of me. Mm-hmm. And often what I do is I look up, mm-hmm. and I see the trees, how old they are. And it really gives me a comforting feeling.
Sure.
I think in terms of nature, you can do a number of things. The observation of looking at the bark, looking at the leaves, looking for animal scat trails, mm-hmm. All of that. You become alive.
Mm-hmm. So it's in the moment. You have to really focus, right? Not multitasking.
No, you're just there and you're paying attention. I saw so many different birds and I heard so many different bird sounds. I don't know what they are. I would have to use an app or something.
Right,
But,
right.
just aware that there is a whole life out there.
Yes. And hopefully we can coexist. Some of the programs that you've talked about also include like a pollinator pathway, right?
Right. It was during COVID, which was a very hard time to try and get anything started. Tried to get North Branford identified as a sustainable community. And in doing that, I started a pollinator pathway. And I worked with our town planner and a few children, but it was very hard to get that going. One person I worked with put in a lovely pollinator garden right in the center of Northford. And then she got so into it, she's gotten certified by the Xerxes Society, which has to do with insects and things like that. And she speaks all over the place, and she's very excited. So, I see the signs all over. I see the flowers. Our town gives out free seeds so that people can attract pollinators.
Wonderful. And you had something with sunflower packets, correct?
Right. The town was looking for an identity, so that had to do with economic development. At Auger Farms, which is a wonderful farm stand, they offered to put in like rows and rows of sunflowers, and it really attracts people to the town. And then once people are in the town, maybe they'll go out for pizza, who knows?
Okay.
So it's what the development of a small town is about, getting an identity.
Absolutely. And I know that part of your background with North Branford was that you had produced a video promoting the town. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that.
So what happened is I went to the person who was in charge of economic development. And I was thinking of saying to him, it would be great to have a calendar or something with the trails on them. And maybe the Shoreline Chamber could fund it. And I was just kind of bouncing around ideas. And he said, I looked you up. I know what your background is. And I have a much better idea for you.
Okay.
And I went, okay.
Yeah.
And he said, we need a promotional video to attract businesses to the town. And I said, well, I haven't done that in years. And he said, yeah, but you're smart. I know you'll be able to do it. So I produced a little 4-minute promotional video that's on the town website still. It kind of gives an overview of the town.
And for the viewers who are not familiar with North Branford, it started off as very much a rural community, correct, with a lot of farms?
It still has a lot of farms. In fact, my husband's parents were chicken farmers, and when they retired and were moving to Florida, they said to the sons, we have to move to Florida for our health, and we're going to sell the farm. And they said, you're going to sell the farm to us.
Okay,
So
wonderful.
we live on the chicken farm, and when I got married, we had chickens, and I was known as the egg lady.
Okay. Well, I can certainly relate to that. We have an egg lady in our family, so
Okay.
that's great. Our daughter's out in a rural area. Tell us about other things that you think contributed to the fact that you were named as the Shoreline Chamber of Commerce a Woman of Excellence in Arts and Science.
In arts.
In arts? Okay.
I was very honored to receive that citation. Ann Nyberg was the one who had presented it in the Shoreline Chamber, and I was really surprised. And they did it because the video that I had produced had made a difference. And I
Okay.
think when you make a difference, people recognize it. And I worked very hard on it. The only problem with the video is that the people have changed jobs.
And you said that people have changed jobs, like
There's a new town manager,
Yeah.
new town planner, people who are in positions in
Right.
the town. There's new people.
Okay, so about how long ago did you make that video?
A few years ago.
Yeah, okay. Well, things do change pretty
Right.
quickly, and I shared with you, I do some human resources work with municipalities, and I see a lot of the issues of prosperous towns, small towns, towns that have different identities, and the change of leadership and how that can impact.
The thing about the location of the town being between 91 and 95, and what people like about the town, and you got to see the wineries, and you got to experience,
Right.
get a feel for the town.
Right.
It didn't tell you any more than give you a feel. It's like
Okay.
an appetizer.
Nice.
So
I could see where it wouldn't be dated, really, in terms of, again, you say the players have changed, but the culture of the town and what it offers endure.
Right.
Yeah, that's terrific. In your school librarian days, so you had 20 years. Okay, at
Sure
an
did.
elementary school, correct? Was it at the same elementary school?
It was.
Oh, okay. And how did any work with nature interact with your programs at that time?
I'm interested in nature and I'm interested in arts.
Okay.
So the two things, I tried to bring two things in. And in terms of nature, one of the moms was a landscape architect.
Okay.
And she contacted somebody from DEEP, the Department of Environmental
EEEP.
right, protection.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a little piece of land outside the library. And they walked that land, and I walked with them, and we put in a nature trail. And we had children name the trail and design the sign for the trail. And I remember taking kindergartners out there and showing them a red cedar. And I'd say, do you think the tree grows like that? They'd say, oh, no. I think a bear came and scratched that tree, because that's what a red cedar kind of looks
Yeah.
like. And we would get to the point, well, what color is the tree? And somehow or another, we would get to red cedar. And it just opened a whole new world for them. And then I ordered, I think it was Golden Book field guides.
Okay.
And I taught them how to use the field guides, and they'd go out and look for wildflowers, and we'd identify the trees, and I'd say, okay, well, here's a beech tree. Can you find another beech tree? And we had a beautiful field guide that we developed, and I spent a lot of time with kids out there, and I'm sure every single one of them remember that.
Okay. Getting those moments and helping build observation skills in kids, appreciation for, I'm sure, some of the interactions of nature.
Right, and I taught them, if you see a log, you can move the log and see what's under the log, but make sure you put that log back. The forest doesn't belong to you. You are a visitor. So before you put your hand on a tree, look to make sure there's no red ants or insects where you're going to put your hand. That kind of thing. So an awareness of nature.
And what kind of feedback did you get from parents?
They loved it.
Okay, wonderful.
They
That's-
loved it. I got a grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities for these large art prints, and I would work with students on their observational skills. So Washington crossing the Delaware, I would say, what's happening with the weather? Look at the sky. What's happening with the weather? How many horses can you count? What's the difference between people, because they wore different caps depending on where they were from. So that's what I focused on a lot, was observational skills.
Okay. Which we can all benefit from continuing to do that. So prior to becoming a librarian, there were a number of things that you did. I think your Equal Rights to the Sun was one of your first video experiences. Is that correct?
That is.
It launched a number of other opportunities.
I went to Emerson College, and I was living in Boston. I was going for my graduate degree, and I had to do a project. And at first I said, I'm going to do something with healthcare, because I think people need to learn about healthcare. And when they go into doctor's office, they can watch a video. And I was very interested in preventative medicine.
Okay.
Well, the medical community was not interested in that at all. So the only way I could get any information was I took temporary jobs as secretary one day, and I would go into different hospitals. And I said, you know what, I'm banging my head against a wall. I'm before the time this will happen, but it's not going to happen now. And then I somehow connected with a group of people who were doing self-help, low-cost urban solar energy. I contacted them, and I ended up making a video called Equal Rights to the Sun. And it was 25 minutes long, and I went to visit my aunt in Washington, D.C. And I called up the Department of Energy, and I said, I have this video. And they said, you documented what people are doing in the community on solar energy? We'll send a limo for you. Stay
nice.
put.
I would say that.
So
opens
then
the
I'm
door.
like, oh my God, and I had nothing to wear.
Yeah.
And my aunt is giving me clothes to wear. And I went down and they looked at the video and they said, we're going to get funding to transfer this video to film because people didn't have CRs in those days.
Okay.
And they paid me to write a study guide. And then my career took off from there.
You were involved with Jewish Film Festival? Is that kind of sequentially?
I had a job before that. I decided I needed to make real money and I needed to have benefits. Because as an independent producer, it was tough. So I took a job at Wang Laboratories and was a senior producer for 5 years.
Okay.
And then Wang went belly up. I was not a corporate person. And so there was a job opening of somebody I knew that was looking for help producing the Jewish Film Festival in Boston. And it was a very big festival. There were 3 different venues. We brought filmmakers in from Russia, from all over the country. We were funded by donors, and it was a lot of fun and a lot of work.
I bet.
But it was a lot of
A
fun.
lot of moving pieces.
There were.
Prior to becoming a librarian, you had to go back to school after having gotten an advanced degree and become a librarian, right? So what's your recollection of what that was like to go back to school midlife? I mean, it sounds like you're a lifelong learner, but still, that's a formal program.
A lot of the courses I took for media were accepted in the school library media program. So I only had to get the educational credits, and I was very fortunate that my husband was a professor at Central, so I got to go pretty much for free. And I just loved learning.
Yes.
It wasn't hard for me. And he said to me, just please don't go for your doctorate. He said, I had such a hard time.
Okay.
Please don't do that.
All right. You have an informal doctorate and other things.
I've got
so,
an
yeah.
MLS, and
Okay.
I have.
This is a show for women, and women can be our greatest role models, confidants, supporters. You've mentioned to me the impact your mom had on you, so tell us a little bit about your mom and the skills that, and key life lessons you learned from her.
Unfortunately, my mom was very sick. From the age of 3, she had breast cancer, and then it spread. And she felt that she needed to teach me everything she could teach me while she was alive. She taught me how to make hospital corners on beds, and when I wanted a party, I had to scrub the floor on my hands and knees. She was not easy, but she also was an artist. She painted in oils, and she taught me how to draw a vase and how to, draw a table, different things. And one time, I was very little. We were sitting on the couch. My legs didn't go to the end of the couch, they were sticking straight out. And she had a tiny book on Chagall. She said, this is a very famous artist, and he also did stained glass. And she said, I have been an artist my whole life, and I always wanted to learn stained glass, and I never did. And it's one of my regrets. So years later, I think it was the year 2000, I went to Israel, and I saw those Chagall windows that were in the book. And I came back, and I cried.
Yeah,
I cried because
yeah.
I was so moved. And I signed up at the Guilford Arts Center, and I've been doing stained glass as a hobby ever since. Back to the observational skills. I love the way the light goes through the different colors of glass.
Mm-hmm.
And I sit in my living room and I stare out and I say, this is so nice. You know,
Right.
I'm proud of it. And it's my way, in a weird way, of speaking with my mom.
Oh, I don't think that's weird at all. I think it's beautiful.
Well, she was a very special person,
Mm-hmm.
and she, you know, how she ended up saying, I'm not going to deal with my illness. I'm going to make sure I teach my daughter, like in second grade, I had to knit a sweater.
Mm-hmm.
She was tough. Looking back, she
Yeah.
did the right thing.
And you're wearing a necklace made of glass that you made yourself, correct?
I did. I went to Corning, New York. I took a Rhodes Scholar 5-day trip and did glass blowing, which is not easy.
Okay.
And you have these big furnaces. You have this heavy metal. You have to pick up the glass and turn in these fireplaces, and it can drip and it can crash and it can fall. And I was using a lamp. You know,
Okay.
it's smaller, like a Bunsen burner, but each one of these beads is, you know,
Something you made.
I made it,
Wonderful.
and it worked.
What advice would you give your younger self? Maybe at different life stages or
Well, you know, I always feel that we're walking along a road and we come to a fork and there's a choice. And it's okay to make the wrong choice.
okay.
And I felt every time I made the wrong choice, I was pretty hard on myself. But the thing is, you learn so much from making the wrong choices as well. So don't give up. If you have something you want to do, go for it. What's the worst that can happen? You know, go for it.
Excellent. I'm sure that has guided you through many different choices that you've made. And do you have a favorite quote or mantra?
I do and I don't.
Okay.
I can't, it's not in my head.
All right. Well, certainly lifelong learning, not being afraid to do different things. To some extent, following your talents and skills and interests.
It was not easy as a 14-year-old girl losing a mother. And my father was not there. So I pretty much raised myself. And my father would not pay for me to go to college. He didn't think girls should go to college.
Okay.
I've worked hard to do it on my own. I never accepted no for an answer, and I think that's
I think that's your mantra. I think so. Certainly one of them.
Maybe.
This has been delightful. Thank you for sharing all your stories and your journey, your current activities. Congratulations again on being a woman of excellence. And tune in to hear other fascinating women on future segments of Midlife Matters. I'm Georgianne Lucier, your host, and thank you for joining us.